Hold on here. Let's bring on our guest tonight. Hey guys,
Hi.
how are you?
So just so you guys know, I was just plugging Kamala's book and stuff. That was my first book that I did, and we're still selling the book, and the proceeds still go completely to the family and all. And I just wanted to plug it real quick and get that out of my system. And I'll let you guys have a good show and take the sorrow out of this opening segment now. But,
You've done a good job passing the word around, Kenny. And you and I were actually chatting when we found out, right?
yeah.
That's no, he was a good dude, and I certainly enjoyed revisiting our stories that we had at Slam Wrestling over the years too.
So, and I'll let you go. And I did also mention, Greg, that we're going to do some kind of pay-per-view with Fight TV for Cauliflower, so they can continue to help people like James, like they've done in the past. And
Awesome.
an announce will be in about a week or so on that. More information.
Cool. Another thing we did together.
Yeah. So cool. Okay, have a good show. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Kenny. All right, well, welcome to the show tonight. We're having some technical difficulties beforehand. My computer completely stopped working. So, all right, hold on. So I think someone's getting a little bit of feedback, and I can't tell who it is.
Might be me.
Hold on 1 second here. All right, LuFisto, let me hear you say something.
1, 2, testing.
No, it's not. I think it's Greg.
Yeah, what else is new? Can you still hear me now?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you now.
But I can't hear you.
We'll get it figured out as the show goes on.
Okay, let's try that again.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Let's see.
Yeah, there's a little bit of feedback, right?
Yeah, a little bit. That was okay.
If I move back?
No, that was okay. That was
okay.
Good. So, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. It's really hot out here.
Now, so Greg, you're in Toronto. You're in Toronto, right?
I'm in the center of the universe. Yes, Toronto.
Okay. So you're probably getting geared up for the hockey playoffs, I would imagine.
The Habs, speaking of which, the Montreal Canadiens bought billboard space in Toronto to control the Leafs who are out.
Oh, that's funny.
You gotta love it.
That's hilarious. All right, and LuFisto, am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it?
Yes.
LuFisto? Okay.
LuFisto.
Where are you based out of?
I'm about like an hour away from Montreal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So, Greg, are you guys working on a book together? Is that what's happening?
You are. He convinced me.
I didn't have to work real hard. It actually started with you, Eddie. Or actually, no. It was who was hosting the second half of the first CovaCon?
Rob
with Michael Holmes of
Okay.
CW Press. He was on there and he was asked who he'd really want to do a book with, and he mentioned Jen. LuFisto, I'm sorry, is that kayfabe?
No.
And
everybody knows my name.
and I dropped her a note and said, I'd certainly be interested in talking, but I think more importantly, I introduced her to Michael Holmes, and they talked. Because if you don't know what a book's about, especially one with a publisher, it's different than what Kenny was talking about working with Kamala. There's a much bigger lead time and expectations with working with a publisher.
Yeah, it's like I knew nothing about books. I mean, I had some people come in like wanting to write something about me or part of books, but never did I have someone say, hey, I really want to write your story. So when that happened and Greg reached out, he's like, Michael Holmes says he would like to publish a book about your story. I was like, I wasn't sure because it's, you got to dig deep, and I've been wrestling close to 25 years. So I had so many questions, like what's relevant? What should I talk about? Are they stories that are more important than others? And how do you narrow it down to a book over 25 years? So Mike and Greg were really good at answering all my questions. And finally I said, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can. It seems like a really hard process to write a book because you're right. There is so much. Like I was writing. I just started writing an article for like a career job that I'm trying to get, and just writing a one-page article. I was like I was writing the most like minute information. You know, all this minutia that doesn't probably have to be in there because I don't want to leave out a single detail. And I have no idea how anyone writes a book that is under like 1,000 pages about
that. That's why I need someone as good as Greg.
I don't know.
Experience.
Like Greg, how do you make the decision what somebody wants to hear about and what someone doesn't want to hear about?
Well, there's besides the basics, you got to sort of follow your instinct, right? And it's and Jen's learned this already, is that there'll be times I'll follow up and said, last time you said this, can we explore that a little bit more? And that's probably the main job of any biographer, is to listen, right? And then follow up, because then you'll go off on a tangent that's maybe more important. Especially having worked with a lot of old hockey players or wrestlers, or, you know, the older they are, the more they've told the same stories again and again, that they don't get challenged to tell new stories or stories that they'd forgotten or things that, you know, maybe they've repressed. So I think that's a lot of it. You got to lead with, look for what's interesting to you and hope that's also interesting to the reader.
Right. Let's see. We have a question coming in here. What's been your reaction to the recent Twitter debates on intergender wrestling?
It's something I've seen. Like, it's not new to me. I've been fighting for women's right in wrestling for the past 24 years. Actually fought the government for it. Maybe I have a different perspective than the newer talent, where I can understand why a man would not want to wrestle a woman. I see it as the same way as somebody not doing hardcore. There's some things in wrestling, either it's moves or type of wrestling matches or stipulations that you're not comfortable with. And I actually like the fact that some wrestlers will come forward and say, I'm not comfortable doing this. I'd rather have someone like this than somebody who says, like, I'm going to do it, but once he gets in the ring with me, he's so uncomfortable that the match is either really bad, he gets hurt, or like it happened to me in the past, guys didn't want to wrestle me, so they would beat the living hell out of me just to prove me that as a woman I didn't belong in a ring with them. But thank God with the times that this changed a lot. A lot of guys now are open to wrestle with women, but maybe it's the way I look at it, because I've seen it from day zero to what it is today. And there's such a big improvement. A lot of women are seen as equal now. They have their own spot on the roster, on a card, whether it's against another woman or another man. There's been such an evolution when it comes to the women in wrestling. I don't want to say women's wrestling, but women in wrestling. That I see it as a victory. There's always going to be someone who doesn't like it. Like some people don't like death matches. Some people don't like lucha libre. You know, everybody loves their own thing. But in general, I think you like or you don't. But if you're into it, there's been such a great evolution. And if a woman now wants to wrestle a man, she can anywhere in the world, because it's possible now, because, well, especially in Ontario, there's no commission telling you can't anymore.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I like the idea of the evolution, and that's also what I'm always looking for with writing. And part of my challenge is going to be writing in a female voice, right? This has got to be Jen's story. And so I'm looking forward to the challenge of making sure that maybe, you know, little tropes or little, you know, expressions or things that maybe I write as a man that wouldn't pull off for Jen. So, I mean, it's a good challenge. And I think every author always wants something new. And this is definitely new and unique, and she's got a great story.
Hasn't intergender wrestling happened before? Like, it's not, isn't it a new thing? I mean, I think it's happened before.
I've been wrestling, guys, since 1997. My first championship was actually a cruiserweight championship in '98, and I was a world champion in 2001. So I've been collecting male belts forever.
Mhm.
And not only me, Cholito Melissa had one, Nicole Matthews had one in Vancouver. I think it's 2014. I could be wrong. But it's intergender wrestling is not something new. It's just that now that the internet allows independent wrestling to be a lot more accessible, now it's out there. You can watch a lot of it. It's on YouTube. Even Impact Wrestling experienced it with Tessa Blanchard and the Sami Callihan feud, which, you know, back in the day you would, well, there was China. Let's not forget about China. Yep. So here and there was a little bit of intergender, and even I think it's Shane Elms posted a clip of where he was wrestling Mighty Molly. It's been there, but it was just like here and there. Now with the internet and how easy it is to get content now online, or Fight Network and Fight TV and all these like the independent wrestling network. Now it's everywhere. It's accessible, so it looks like there's a lot more, but it's been going for years.
Now, what would be a reason that a man wouldn't want to be in the ring with you? Is it because they don't want to?
They're scared.
Or is it because they don't want to have to put over somebody, or
there's different reason. I've met some men who thought they would look stupid throughout the years. Like, I can't lose to a woman. I can have a woman beat me up. It's gonna make me look weak. That's one that you don't hear a lot anymore, though. But there's also, and it happened to me throughout the years, where a man is like, I'm not comfortable hitting a woman. I feel it's not right. Too many people see this as something that would represent domestic violence when it's absolutely not, because somebody who's the victim of domestic abuse doesn't choose to be a victim. It's something wrong. It's something that should not happen. As a professional athlete, I choose to be there. I want to be there as an equal, and I know what I'm getting into. Where it is wrong, and that's one thing like Lance Storm mentioned last week, I think, and people went kind of nuts, but he was right on the fact that nobody should be, it shouldn't be an obligation to do it if you're not comfortable. If you're a woman and I don't feel comfortable wrestling men, then you don't do it. Like, you're not going to take a move you're not comfortable because you might get hurt. It's the same thing for wrestling a guy if you're not comfortable doing it. So that would be the two main reasons where that usually comes back, or, oh, you're so small, what am I going to do with you? But, think about Rey Mysterio and how many bigger guys he fought in awesome matches, or Daniel Bryan. So if you can kind of forget the gender aspect, you can have an amazing match with a woman if she's smaller. Like, size doesn't matter. It's how you work the match, how you tell the story. There's a way to, so it makes sense and it looks good. I believe not all women should be doing intergender wrestling, because not all of them are looking good. Like, you're fighting a guy, you should be really intense. You should be really like fighting like it's the last day of your life. Like, you got to give everything you have. If you're not an intense individual and you don't have that strong kind of style, it's not going to look good against someone who's much bigger. Yeah. So, it's all how it's done and how it's presented and what's the story you're telling while you're wrestling.
I thought when I saw Ronda Rousey put Triple H in a fireman's carry, I thought that looked pretty good.
And then that was impressive, and the people in the crowd went nuts. So,
I guess the reality is that she probably could hold her own in a legit street fight with him, right? I mean, she's an MMA champion, so
there's definitely women who can go out there and fight the guys.
But suspending the disbelief is when she's then in there with Nikki Bella, and it's like, she could break her in half. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Triple H, you knew it was a real challenge. Like, she'd really have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We got a couple more questions here coming in here.
It was there.
There we go. You were set to retire, and before the pandemic, you were still tearing up the wrestling scene. What changed, and how much longer will we see you go?
You got a book to promote. You better keep going.
What changed is in February, I hurt my knee, and I was really kind of just fed up with wrestling. After so many years, I was like, I'm hurt again. I don't want to deal with it. I kind of like didn't have the love for it anymore. And then I'm like, this is my last year. I'm going to do a couple of matches that I really want to, and I'm going to hang up the boots. So in my head, my last match was going to be against Tyson Dukes. Like, that's the match that I wanted to, end my career. Because Tyson is one of the first guys when I started wrestling that says, hey, I want to work you. And he's always seen me as an equal. So I always had so much love and respect for him because he always treated me as an athlete. So it was for sure like I wanted to fight Tyson Dukes. But for some reason, I tried to make it work with Smash Wrestling and FLQ, and it's like we couldn't find a date. Nothing was working. So I just kept going, and then I wrestled Kobe Durst at Alpha One and had a pretty good match. I was like, wow, I was able to follow him, 23 years old, and he's like really good. But the match that changed everything for me was when I wrestled the Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander at C4. We had a match where people went completely nuts, and in the end, I lost the match, which was a championship match for the C4 Wrestling heavyweight. And when I stood up, the whole crowd stood up, gave me the biggest ovation ever, and they all came to the ring and slapped the mat. And I was standing as like, my God, what's going on? And I kind of realized that this is where I belong. A lot of people say wrestling is their dream. They want to make it and stuff. And I was like, no, this is my calling. And I think that's where I realized it was so deep inside of me. And when I went backstage, I went to see the promoter, and it's like, well, maybe I still have it. He's like, no, you never lost it. You just thought you did. And then I was like, I knew I needed to go on.
Hold on here. Let's see. Good answer. Do you think you'll get a crack at a major TV roster before you're done with the business?
I really hope so, because I can bring a lot to a promotion. I have a lot of experience. I can work any type of wrestling matches. I can work with any, whatever amount of experience that stands in front of me. I can work. I'm really good at working with the weaknesses and strength of my opponents, whether it's been 2 years here in the business or 20. Basically, I think I could bring so much to a wrestling company, a little bit more of an intense side that's a little different. And basically all I need is one shot. And once I'm there, I know I'm going to kill it.
Aren't you going to be on WWE Network now? You said the WXW videos are going to be up there, so soon.
I know
people will be able to search you.
I know. I saw that this morning. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to see LuFisto on the WWE Network." It's like, well, ain't that ironic? That's funny. But I have matches with Toni Storm, with Miko Satomura, with Layla Hirsch from last year. That's one of my favorite matches ever. And Killer Kelly, Wesna. There's so many great matches that I had at WXW that I'm actually happy that people are on a more worldwide. Is gonna see what I can do.
Okay, well, God, 2020 is such a weird time, right? Where I have to watch how I phrase a question so that no one gets offended. But are there certain I've always wondered this about women wrestlers. Are there certain women wrestlers that maybe you respect more than others? Because it seems to me, as an outsider, that there might be a few of them who get into it as models and become wrestlers as opposed to just being a good wrestler. Is that true or is that not true?
Well, hang on. Can I just say I think Jen is the one that most of them respect, all the women out there respect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So she's like the mama bear of women's wrestling.
I try.
And we'll fight for them.
Yeah, I can't keep my mouth shut. If I see something wrong, I'll stand up.
Is that a thing is that a reality that where it seems like just watching the WWE Network?
Well,
it seems like some of them are models and then they teach them how to wrestle.
It used to be like that a lot more in the Attitude Era, I would say. Now you got a lot of athletes like the Charlotte Flairs, the Sasha Banks, the Baileys. They came from the independent scene. Like most of the wrestlers that are there now recently signed in, like Mercedes Martinez and Candice LeRae. They're all like very like experienced. So it was true years ago, but now things are changing for the better.
Oh, that's good. Okay. All right. Answered my question. Let's see. Hold on. We have a question here for both of you. Thoughts on the Ontario indie wrestling scene, 2005 through pre-pandemic. Ken Hayashi in general.
That's a small period of time. So long story short, Ontario used to be regulated in that you had to have a license, you had to register if you were running a show, you had to have a certain amount of insurance. There were a lot of different rules. And then there was a time Jen wanted to wrestle against a man. And so she ended up getting involved with, and she wasn't the only reason that Ontario got out of the regulation game, but she was a big part of it. And so Ontario is no longer a regulated province, and anybody can run a show. Anyone can be a wrestler. And of course, we can argue till we're blue in the face whether that's a good thing or not, because we've all seen people that don't belong in the ring. But that's a big part of Jen's story.
Okay. Do you have any, Jen? Do you have any thoughts on the Ontario wrestling scene?
Don't give it all away. Save some for the book.
No, I won't. No, I just remember that back then, it was like, because I was already wrestling guys, and I had a few matches, especially with the Hardcore Wrestling Federation in Ontario, and I had a lot of matches there with, like I said, Tyson Dukes was one of them, JC Owens, Jack Damage back then. And one day they just decided to apply the rule that men and women cannot be in the ring at the same time. And since there was no other women back then, I lost all my bookings. And I was 22 at the time. And for me, like, even at such a young age, it was like really unacceptable that because of my gender, and in a city like Toronto, where so many movies are filmed, and like Batman is fighting Catwoman, or like stunt women are getting involved with the guys, they let it happen. And they wouldn't let me do it because I was just a little independent wrestler. And I remember also having a hard time like getting the license. You would need to get the license every year, but if you got your license in October, it was good until January, and that was like $75 each time. So when you're 22 and trying to make a living with wrestling and going to school at the same time, because I was going to college, it was like, I was like, why are we paying that? Because to the opposite of some athletic commission in the United States, you actually pay for the commission, but there's a doctor on the premises. There's actually services being provided to wrestlers if they get injured or anything. But I felt like there was nothing. And I remember the promoters really being upset, like, I have to pay so much insurance, but if something happens, they're not backing me up. There's nobody to help me. So it's like fire, like pretty much money in the garbage. So when that happened, when they banned me pretty much from the province, because I could not wrestle there anymore, I just called the Ontario Human Rights and explained what was going on. And she's like, oh yeah, you got a case. So started to file a bunch of papers, a lot of phone calls when phone calls were not free. My God, did I spend a lot of money on phone calls.
That's crazy.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago, though. Like, society moves pretty quick. And even in the 70s, like, women's wrestling wasn't allowed at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Really?
They had them as judo exhibitions. They weren't allowed to actually have a women's match.
Wait, so the Fabulous Moolah couldn't wrestle Wendy Richter there?
Not in the 70s.
Oh,
it changed in the 80s.
Okay. In the 80s, okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but there was something with Viviane Vachon too, that she could not wrestle, so she went down the streets of Montreal with like signs saying "Let Viviane wrestle." I don't know exactly the year, but there's pictures of that.
So yeah, she couldn't wrestle in the city proper, but she could wrestle just outside it, right? So like she could go to like Verdun or whatever and wrestle and be okay. which is so you can wrestle in the suburbs legally, but not in Montreal itself.
That seems really weird.
Well, that's government anywhere, though.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you ever work with Joey Ryan? He was known for these.
I did. I've worked with Joey Ryan, I think 3 times. The first time was in 2008. And, well, I don't know if I should be proud or not about that, but on my resume, you could say I'm the first girl who got the bootplex.
All right.
What do you say to that, Ed? Right?
What is the boot?
I know.
I don't know what that is, but I got to look that up later.
Joey Ryan, yeah.
Let's see. Intergenders are big in Mexico, right? Any different?
No, I actually had a big intergender match in my lights went off. I'm sorry about that.
I think she lost power.
I was going to say it was a boobplex or something. Just messed it all up.
Wait a second, I'm sorry.
All right, which cat is that, Jen?
Oh my God.
Did you lose power?
No, just the light.
Oh.
It's the ghost in the room.
Storm rolling through.
Anyway, so she does go down to Mexico. She has some really good intergender matches there, but there's also just good stories about women's wrestling, how different it is there, how better respected it was.
It's back with the cat.
There you go. Yeah, I see the cat. I was hiding behind you.
I'm going to ask the cat a question. Has anyone ever wrestled a cat?
That was Teddy Hart that brought the cat to the ring, right? So.
It is actually a Persian, like Mr. Money.
Okay.
Hold on. So you went to Mexico, is that right?
Yeah, to go back on what we were saying before I lost my light. Mexico, people still talk about it today. Like, I had a match in 2005 against Joe Leather, and a lot of people say it's still the best intergender hardcore match they've ever seen. And people are still like sending me messages like, so when are you guys fighting again? I'm like, well, that was like 2005. It's like 15 years ago. They're still talking about it. And all the time I go to Mexico, there's either like a confrontation or me and Joe will meet, and like people are like, yes, they're going to fight, but we actually didn't. Well, we did in tag teams, but we never had another hardcore match.
All right, let's see. Let me try to get to all these questions here. How is Peekaboo these days?
Dead.
That's who turned off the light.
Yeah, it's her ghost.
Let's see. Really made Impact Wrestling for WSU. And then someone wants... Oh, wait. Oh, any thoughts on who's going to write the foreword for your upcoming book?
I don't know, but somebody who's been really supportive lately was Mick Foley. So if we could have Mick, that would be pretty amazing.
My problem is that Mick Foley just wrote one of the forwards for John Arezzi's book. It's like I'm going to be in Good with Mick or something. It's going to look kind of strange. But
maybe it's too soon to tell.
But it's another year. It'll be fine. So it's Mick Foley, right? It looks great on any book cover.
Now, Greg, how many books can you work on at one time when you're doing a project like this? Can you take on more than one, or are you solely focused on her book, on LuFisto's book right now?
If I was smart, I'd probably be doing just one book. John Arezzi's book is written and edited.
Yep.
And ECW now is doing the copy edit, and then we have like 3 weeks to pick all the pictures, and then put that in, and then it's basically out of our hands until we get a final proof. Jen's is sort of waiting till that's done for me to focus completely. However, at the same time, I'm self-publishing a book about a Canadian actor named Billy Van that's I've been working on for probably a dozen years. And so it's finally almost done. So I've been doing the layout and buying the rights to the pictures, all that stuff, all at the same time, relaunching Slam Wrestling, trying to live a real life, all these things. It's been a little busy, but the actual writing's not hard. It really isn't. It's amassing the information and organizing it, and then sitting down to write's not a big deal for me.
How long can you write in one day? I'm just curious. Like, can you get like 8 hours at the computer?
No.
Okay.
No. What the way I have it set up though is I have an upstairs computer that is offline. So when I really need to write and just write, I go upstairs and turn on the music, and I'm in there, probably for 6 hours out of the day, and you just spread it out. You go do stuff.
Wow.
But mainly it's about sections, right? If I can get a chapter done that day, because so much of it is about pulling stuff together and working on it. And because I'm offline, I have to think about things a little differently. And I'll find a little hole, and I'll put what I call like an XXX in the actual chapter, and then I'll go trying to find those details. It's a weird way to work, but it works for me.
No, that's incredible. I took a 3-minute typing test the other day, and I thought I couldn't move my hands when I was done. Like, I don't know how you can sit there for that long and typing away. But
the music helps.
That's great. So, LuFisto, it looks like you started wrestling at the age of 17, right?
Yes.
So obviously you were fairly athletic, I would imagine.
No.
Really?
Oh no. I was fat and out of shape, and I didn't like sports. I played football and I played baseball when I was younger, but I have always been more of into music and drawing, like in arts. I've actually won like contests, like drawing contests, and I was in a band. I was playing bass. I was singing. So wrestling came pretty much as a surprise. One of my drummer was just watching wrestling. He said, you got to watch this. This guy's building caskets, talking about The Undertaker, and I just got hooked. And well, yeah, that wasn't planned. I was not athletic at all. And
so you were watching, and you thought, I would love to get body slammed onto the mat, like.
It was more because I was really impressed with The Undertaker, and I liked his character, and I liked the creativity and everything that I felt that in wrestling, I could find everything I love, like being creative, the sport aspect, and the entertaining aspect. So I would have my music, my art, and the sport part was more of like, even if I was not into sport and I was not training, like, it was fascinating to me that they would create like magic, like on the screen. And the fact that when you compare it to movies, like wrestlers, they don't have like take one, take two. It has to be perfect on the spot. So it's very challenging, and you push your own limits. And it's so many things in like one thing. That I think that's why I really, really got in, like, hooked so fast. And through The Undertakers, there was that feud with Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano that made me realize, like, oh, Japanese wrestling. And then I saw all the women there, and I just fell in love, and that's when I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Now, did you go to like a wrestling school to learn how to do it, or? Yeah,
I did. There was a local wrestling school with just local wrestlers in my hometown, and there were 4 of them, and I just, like, my friends were joining in. It's like, oh, you can't do this. And I remember my stepfather back then was like, wrestling's not for girls, you're not athletic, you're too big, it's not going to work. And I just wanted to prove him wrong so bad, and I wanted to prove wrong everybody that I could do it. Like, it's always been a team.
What was the first week like?
Hard.
Okay.
I remember one of the first things my teacher told me is like, it's going to be really hard on the body, but you as a woman, it's going to be even worse mentally. I just want you to know, just be prepared. I had no clue what he was talking about, and I've learned pretty fast.
Now, Greg, did you ever want to? You were a wrestling fan. Did you ever want to be a wrestler?
No, I was always a writer. I've been in the ring a couple of times, but just to goof around.
Yeah.
Never involved in any angles, never managed. No, just never had that interest. I respect what everybody can do. But not for me.
Yeah, no, I wanted to be a wrestler until I was like 12, and I figured I'm never going to be big enough. But
So you bought all the toys instead.
I have all the all the action figures. Do you have an action figure?
I don't have like one per se, but
we'll have to get
I got two that were made by fans. One in Mexico and one in Toronto.
Oh, that's cool. That works.
I got a pop though too.
Awesome.
Oh, really?
Like a little Funko Pop.
Okay.
There's a fan who had got one made for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't have any yet. Are you gonna ask that? I don't have any dolls about me.
You don't have any?
No.
Greg wants a doll.
Writers just aren't celebrated the same way.
They should be. I mean,
I know.
You guys are bringing the stories to life.
We're keeping them alive too. Bringing other people to life. Like that's the fun thing about doing this book on this actor that died in 2003. Like you're really keeping a legacy alive. Whereas Jen's story is quite active, and we're hoping it's going to keep going afterwards, whatever role that may be. And the book's coming out in it'll be the spring of 2022, which is crazy to say. But,
wait, 2022? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, that's the thing. Like we could work on it hardcore and do nothing but for the next 3 weeks and publish it ourselves. Mm-hmm. But because it's with a publisher, there's so many advantages besides actually being paid to do it. They're going to line up, appearances for Jen, like to talk about her story. It's a great Canadian story, period.
Yeah.
Forget the women's aspect. It's just everything she's done to get where she's gotten to. We're hopefully going to get her on some major talk shows, all kinds of things that is really hard to do when it's self-published.
No, that is amazing. So I'm going to ask you the questions that Kenny hates when I ask people. He tells me not to ask any more questions. So when you're on traveling on the road, like what is your day like? What was your typical day like? Did you get to go to the gym at all? Like what does that look like? I'm always fascinated by that.
It always depends where I'm going and how long is the road, and am I flying or am I getting there by car? I remember when I was traveling to Shine Wrestling a lot. I would wake up like really early at 4 a.m., go to the airport because it was an hour away, fly, get there, eat. I would try to rest a little bit, go to the show, and back then I was champion, so I was main event. So I would wrestle at it was almost like midnight every single time. Go back to the hotel, take a shower, sleep 2 hours, go back to the airport, and then. Yeah, the worst one I did is I did that Shine show just like this. I landed in Philly. I had a match with John Silver in Philly, and then drove to Worcester in Massachusetts, right, 7 hours after. So I didn't sleep for 3 days and wrestled 3 matches in 3 different states.
Now, are you trying to diet while you're on the road? I mean, how does that I always wonder how do wrestlers do that?
We bring our food. I've been on a kind of a hardcore diet since the past. It's 4 months now. I've always been. I was careful before, but now with COVID, I can focus more. So I got myself a trainer and actually go to the gym a lot more, and then the fact that I'm not wrestling on weekends now, I go to the gym instead. So I'm trying to be proactive even if I'm not wrestling. But otherwise, if I would go, let's say when I travel to Seaford to Ottawa, I bring my lunchbox and I have everything with me that I need.
Wow.
I have everything I need downstairs. So,
Well, because I have always wondered, you guys, they wrestle all night. Then you got to go to a different town the next day. How do you get to the gym? How do you not eat fast food? How do you not eat fast food when you're on the road?
Oh, it happens. So many times you finish a show, you're hungry. What's open? McDonald's. Right. It's the only thing. You kind of try to deal with it, but you try to grab the healthiest thing there is. But sometimes at 2 a.m. there's not much.
But it's still leagues ahead of what it used to be, right? I mean, when they talk about bologna blowouts, that was really it. The guys after the matches would pull up to a gas station, buy a pound of bologna, mustard, and a loaf of bread. And that's what they'd be eating as they drank and drove to the next town. in the middle of the night. So things have changed quite a bit, but I'm not going to say they're easy at 2 a.m. So
no, that's why I bring my lunch, so I'm not disappointed.
Now, do people recognize you when you're just walking down the street?
yes, sometimes. Yeah. No. Oh wait, that was for Jen. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it happens here and there, and I don't know what happened recently, but people in my hometown that had no clue who I am. Recently, I go to the hospital and it's like, "Hey, you're that wrestler," and then I go to the shopping center. Aren't you the wrestler? I'm like, how'd you guys know? Like nobody knew a thing, but yeah, it happens once in a while.
And
wait till the book launch.
And how do you feel? How do you feel about that?
It's funny. It's always surprising too, because I was like buying stuff to fix my house at. I don't think you guys have Patrick Morin, but it's like the Home Depot of here. And there's a guy.
What is it called?
Oh, I'm sure you can't wait till it starts again. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like the wrestling. I'm like, oh, okay. And that felt kind of weird because I did not expect it. You're like buying materials to fix your house or stuff. Right. And then like that guy comes in. So it's like, but it's flattering.
That's pretty cool. Now, did you have anyone besides The Undertaker that you looked up that you really, that you were a fan of when you first started watching it?
Definitely Bull Nakano was one of my favorite. Akira Kudo. I've always loved Roddy Piper, Jake Roberts, and more recently, especially when I turned heel, I've watched a lot of Chris Jericho. As a heel, I think he's one of the best, so I studied him a lot.
Now, have you had a chance to, when you have you met these people? Have you had a chance to work with them at all, or?
I was like fortunate enough to meet Bull Nakano and Medusa as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get some more questions here. We got a question here. Greg, if you could set up a dream match, past or present, for LuFisto, who would it be against?
Well, I think Bull Nakano would be a great one for sure. Vivian Vachon, there you go. Probably the two most famous women wrestlers ever to come out of Quebec. That would be a really unique match. Because Maurice, she was more famous because she was on WWE, but I wouldn't put her in the same wrestling class as either Vivian Vachon or Jen LuFisto.
All right, let's see. Every match I've ever had the pleasure of seeing you work has been awesome. What are some of your favorite matches?
Definitely Kimberly, Chris Dickinson, A.R. Fox, Josh Alexander, of course. I really love wrestling Frankie the Mobster. The Beast King now. The Beast King. I still call him by his older name. Tyson Dukes, Nyla Rose. There's so many. Like I was blessed to have a lot of great matches. Thinking of everything and beyond wrestling, the tag team matches I had with Jordan Grace, and when I was teaming with Asuka, cheerleader Melissa is always one of my favorites, and Allison Kay, Thunder Rosa, and I always call her my wrestling soulmate, Mercedes Martinez.
Okay, all right. Hold on, let's see. What do you want people to take away from your story?
That's a good question.
We want them to buy it first, but yes.
Buy it. Well, no matter like any obstacle that was put in front of me, somehow I never quit. I'm still here despite everything. So I don't know if it's going to be like a great ending to my story, or I'm just going to fade away. I don't know yet, but I'm still writing it, and I hope what's coming next is the best. No,
that's great. I mean, I've read a million wrestling biographies. It's my favorite thing to read. Like, and the reason being is that, and you'll probably agree with this, is because wrestlers do have to live their character 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No one ever gets to know the human being behind that person. Brad Pitt gets to he gets to be Brad Pitt when he's done doing that movie, right? And I've always thought that's been really fascinating, like, the human being behind the wrestler. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a good way to look at it. It's not always the case, but for a lot of these wrestlers, yeah, they have to live the gimmick.
I mean, maybe not anymore, but I'm a huge fan of like 80s wrestling. So like all the the ones that I read are usually about the 80s guys. Like Kamala, right? He couldn't go be a nice guy eating, going to the diner. He had to like be a mean person. Or stay out of the spotlight. Same thing with like George the Animal Steel, like all those different guys. Anyway. You guys were both at the summit last year in Toronto. What are your thoughts on the amazing progress women have made in the industry?
Well, it was great just to hang out and see it all and meet so many people I'd never met. Like for me, they came to me in Toronto, which was really cool, right? To actually finally meet Nicole Matthews in person, who I'd never met, and have Bill Nakano in town and sit with her for a little bit was awesome. So yeah, no, it was a really great bunch of days. I sold a bunch of books. Always want to sell more. But you do your best. But yeah, no, Jen was there, but Jen's not one to hang around. So I even remember that she was there packing up after the merch thing and didn't want to chat. So
I need to drive back home. But yeah, I mean, there's been now there's like all women shows, which was not a thing a few years ago. And now there's like whole promotions of just women. So tremendous difference from when I started.
Yep. So what is are you not wrestling now because of the pandemic?
Yeah, there's no combat sports allowed in Canada right now, so I'm not.
That's not true in Canada. Hang on. In Quebec there isn't, in Ontario there isn't. But out in the East Coast, they're running a show in September. They've been allowed to run in Manitoba. So there's a few places that they're allowing it with regulations about how many fans can be there. I
don't know. Isn't hockey a combat sport? That doesn't count?
Apparently, no.
They're in their bubble. It's a really crazy setup.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're in their bubble. So how would you feel about wrestling with no fans? Would that be weird?
No,
some indie shows you've been to probably were like that.
I wrestle in front of 5 people, so it would be the same thing. No, I mean, I love wrestling in general, so of course it's not the same atmosphere because when you wrestle, what you like to do is create emotions. You want to take the fans on a roller coaster of emotions, and now you can't get. Like, yes, they might watch the match at home and enjoy it, but you actually won't know or feel what, if what you're giving them is something that reaches out to them. So I don't know, it's doable, and you can do it and have great matches. But the beauty of wrestling is, I always say that there's 4 people in the match. There's you, there's your opponent, there's the referee, and there's the crowd. And as a whole, that makes the match. But now there's one missing, so I feel there's a part missing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to watch personally. It's hard without the crowd noise. And actually, all of the sports for me are hard to watch without the crowd noise. It just seems like I'm watching them practice.
I've liked what All Elite has been doing though with the wrestlers, and the fact that they keep it really kind of in a smaller environment. It looks like there's more people, and it looks not like I don't want to say a bar fight or underground fight, but the way they did it kind of works better. I like what they did. The atmosphere they created with what they could.
Yep. So how does one get, how do you make the transition to one of the, like an AEW or WWE? Do you have to like keep submitting stuff to them, or do they come after? They find you. Like, how does that work?
There was a time you needed to submit promo packs, but now there's so many wrestlers. You have to be what they need and what they want at the right time. And it works a lot by who you know and who you're friends with. And but yeah, you got to be what they're looking for at the right time.
It could be luck too. Like it's the Eddie Kingston idea, right? Like Eddie got in there, gave a great performance, and all of a sudden he gets a deal. Nobody was expecting that, right? So just need those opportunities.
Yeah. So are there fewer opportunities because there's less wrestling shows happening right now?
Well, right now I think a lot of people are kind of. I don't think any promotion is going to make very big decisions on signing international talent because of the COVID and because of the traveling restriction. The good thing about Canadians is that, let's say a Canadian would sign with the bigger promotions, borders are open for people who go to work. You can't go for tourism, but if you have an actual work visa and you're going to States to work, they'll let you through. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, any international, like Europe or whatever, they can't come here. So I just think that since they can't get fans, they can't get they don't know when everything's gonna. I don't think things are gonna go back to normal or what they used to be, but there's gonna be actually close to normal or what it used to be, and then they might start to actually look and bringing more people. But right now I just think they're being careful.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, Ed, but the idea is that Jen could, because the United States is banned from traveling so many places because of all the COVID cases.
Really?
There's absolutely.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, you should look at a map sometimes, man. There's whole maps out there. The United States, you're basically allowed to travel to, what is it, like Cuba and Turkey and Russia, like all these few places in the world, you're not allowed to fly anywhere else, whereas Canada is allowed. So that's a good question. I mean, if you got a chance to go work in Germany next week, would you go, Jen?
Yeah, I would go to Germany.
Really?
Yeah, they're known to have that their government has been really good dealing with COVID.
Wait, would you go to America?
I'm sorry?
Would you come to the U.S. and wrestle if you could?
Would have to be the right opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I would wear my mask. I would be careful, and I mean, it all depends of what it is, where it is. But
you're not going to a show in Burlington, Vermont, you're saying, basically. But maybe if AEW called, you'd go. Okay.
Yeah.
It's easy. See, I don't leave my house, so I don't have any issues.
Explains the collection behind you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hold on here. Let's see. Your thoughts on the success of Jordynne Grace?
Jordan has been working hard for so long, since she was 14. And I've seen her as pretty much a kid and grew into that strong and beautiful woman. And it's in her blood. So I'm extremely proud and happy for her that she's having so much success.
So have you suffered, what's the worst injury that you've ever suffered?
I wrecked my knee.
Wrecked my knee.
No, yes. That was me. You got to ask me some questions.
How are you typing at the computer?
Yeah, no, I was actually out playing soccer, and I did tear my ACL, MCL, meniscus. Ooh. So I do have some sympathy for these real athletes when they talk about knee things. So you get a little bonding moment when you talk about knees.
Well, my worst injury is the same as you, so I know exactly the pain you're talking about. It was something it was like an outside the body experience where
really?
Oh my God, this hurts so much. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I was just screaming. It was terrible.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I've ever done anything like that, but so all right, well, Greg, the few books that you're working on now, when are all three going to be out? You get the 2022 for LuFisto.
Yeah. Well, Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, The Storytellers came out a year ago.
Yep.
That one's gotten some good press and needs more love. I hope the Billy Van biography. So Billy Van was on Sonny and Cher. He did Hilarious House of Frightenstein. He did all kinds of Party Game in Canada. He was quite an institution for sure. I hope to have that one out. I hope by October or November. And then Jen's book is due. I can't remember. I think it's next year around this time. Like we have a lot of. I think it's March. It's due.
March,
so,
yeah, I think it's March.
So we have time to write it. And again, for somebody who's never done it before, it may sound like that's not enough time. But for me, it's like it'll be fine. We'll get there.
Now, what do you usually do to promote a book?
Beg, plead, whatever you can. It's tough. And partly that's also why we do so much things for authors on Slam Wrestling. We had Jamie Hemmings on earlier, ask a question. We have a complete book section, and we talk to the authors. We talk to the subjects. We try to do what we can to help authors. I do a hockey book column at the Society for International Hockey Research, exactly for that reason. It's tough to get publicity. The newspapers don't have space anymore. So you really got to get out there and hustle yourself. So I'm trying to spread the word about authors because I know what great people we all are, or most of us. Not Kenny, right? So
what is? Yeah. So
I'm teasing Kenny.
What is the like? I feel like do people not read books anymore? I mean, like I don't get that. The whole like the phenomenon about. I mean, we probably talked about this before. Like, I need to have the physical book in my hand.
Oh, I totally get the e-reader. It's fine. Like, my wife will read the e-reader for like an hour after I'm already asleep, and that's fine. But there's also the audiobook, and which may or not come up whether they let Jen read it. I was a part of doing Bill Apter's book, and I was basically his coach. And I was part of Bill's fight to be able to, read his own book. Could you imagine anyone Bill Apter reading his book? No. So audiobooks play a part in this too. It's a different world. People consume things differently. I've got a 13-year-old son who just never leaves the screen.
Yeah, I do. I guess I kind of like the audiobook. I guess it depends on who reads it.
Well, if you do a lot of driving, audiobooks are great. I don't own a car, so I definitely don't do a lot of driving. I'm not into audiobooks.
I don't know if people could listen to me talk for so many hours with my French accent.
Yeah.
Well, it might add more authenticity to it.
Yeah.
Story, right?
I don't know.
I mean, who would you want to read your book? To do the audio? Greg?
I could do it. Voice.
More work.
Well, they do get paid for that too. So somebody gets paid to read your audiobook.
Yeah.
Only one of my books has ever been done in an audiobook. It's called Father Bauer and the Great Experiment, which is about the Canadian Olympic program that started in the 1960s. And there was a Vancouver voice actor that was hired to do it. And for my hockey book column, I sought him out and asked him how it works, and did a story about myself, basically, or about my book and the audiobook. So it'll get done. It goes out of our hands. It's not our decision who reads them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I will say, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but I can't remember which book it was, but I had heard about a guy where he had his biography and somebody else was reading the audiobook, and then his voice would chime in to talk about a certain part that just happened in the book or something like that, which I thought was kind of cool. I never listened to it because I don't spend that much time in the car to be able to listen to something like that. But it sounded like a cool concept, where the subject chimes in on something and dives a little bit deeper.
She runs in with an elbow drop.
Yeah. It's like a running, Hold on, let's see. Enjoyed your work with AAA in Mexico.
Thank you. I love wrestling in AAA. They were so professional, and one of the biggest shows I did was 17,000 people in Monterey, and it's one of my favorite matches. It was Mary Apache, Taya, Fabi Apache and myself.
All right, I agree with this person. LuFisto, read by LuFisto. Sign me up right now for that.
We have to license some good music for you, though. That gets really expensive, so we may have to have some generic.
I know some bands, though. They could.
There you go.
Okay, so what are your all right? So what are we going to see on the horizon for you, LuFisto, coming up in the next few years?
Well, a book.
Okay.
Well, right now I'm trying not to think too much because of the COVID, and I don't want to be depressed. So like I said, I'm working more on my training, my diet.
Okay.
I've relaunched my website so it's easier to navigate, and I try to be online as much as possible to talk to the fans, do podcasts, and keep the whole thing alive. And I've been working on the books right now. The process we're at now is I'm going through every match that I had, and I'm trying to figure out which one was important and why. The good thing I did over the years, I didn't know it would be useful, but I did keep statistics of every match I had since the beginning.
Really?
Where the match happened, against who, and the date, when who won and how.
Wait, did you like write these down, or did you keep them on like a spreadsheet?
No, I would just like type them in the Word documents. So yeah, I have one for each and every year that I wrestled.
Are we going to see this will there be photocopies of this in the book?
It may be supplementary on the website.
Yeah.
So, okay. But that's one of the pluses, right? Once I learned these kind of things, that Jen kept so much stuff. That's a huge plus. But you could sort of almost see that, right? She's always been very knowledgeable about dealing with the media. She always had a website. She has her Patreon thing. Like, all these different things add up to make my decision to work with her much more logical. Whereas, like in the past, you have guys like a Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, asked me to write his book. And it's like, well, you can't tell the truth in 10 minutes talking to me on the phone. Why would I work with you on a book? So there's a trust factor that you need on my side. I'm not just going to write somebody's book where I know it's all going to be lies, because it's my reputation on the line too.
Yeah.
I've also kept scrapbooks of everything, newspaper cuts, internet articles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cards and posters. I kept I keep as much stuff as I can. I have tons of books of stuff that I kept, so it's gonna come in handy now.
No, that is great. Any diet tips for the people that are out there trying to? I dropped 27 pounds during COVID, so I'm gonna say.
It's time to leave the house, man.
I can't really give tips because I'm actually I'm paying for a trainer.
All right.
That's how I do it. I'm not a professional, so I did hire a professional to help me and guide me. And just like in wrestling, if you need wrestling school, you go to a good school and see a professional. Right.
Yeah. Now, are you able to train in a ring right now at all? Can you do that? Can you practice in a ring?
No, nothing.
Man, what is that going to be like the first time you take a bump?
I was
after not taking one for a while.
I feel I'm going to be okay because when I've been injured, I was out for 7 months because of a back injury, and when I came back, I wanted it so bad that it felt like I was gone for 5 minutes. Am I going to be? The following day is going to be terrible and it's going to hurt. That I know for sure. It's going to be really painful. But I don't think it. Like I said, it's so inside of me, and it's in my genes and in my blood. I know it's cliche, but I just feel I'm going to be fine and ready to go.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to it. Let's get one last question in here. Greg Oliver, what is your dream wrestling book?
CM Punk, I think.
Really?
Yeah, but it would also be the hockey tie-in, right? He's a big hockey fan.
Yep.
So, we'll throw it out there. That's how I ended up working with Jen, was on this podcast or this Covacon thing when you guys did. I think of anybody that we know would sell a lot of copies, which is, of course, a big part of it, that would get a major publisher. And ECW Press has been a great publisher, but even they'll acknowledge they're not, Random House or Penguin or one of the huge ones. But I think CM Punk's probably the great white whale out there of guys that have an amazing story that I think would move a lot of copies, and he has the interesting love of hockey too. So, and his Blackhawks are still playing, like your Habs. So,
my Habs
aren't they your Habs? You're
I don't know. I've been a Blackhawk fan forever.
Wow. Oh, there, I just learned something new for the book.
Here's one thing. Every time I did go to the Shimmer, I would buy tickets to go to the United Center and see the Blackhawks.
Okay, that's awesome. All right.
Greg, what are your thoughts on the shoot interviews? Is it hard for someone to do a book after they do one of those?
Well, I think most shoot interviews are pretty. Oh, how can I put this politely? Terrible, because they don't listen. Right? They have their list of questions.
Yep.
And they just go through. They're not, and then soon enough, the people being interviewed, they're just sort of get into a routine. They just start doing answers by rote. They're not actually thinking about things. And so that goes back to what I said earlier, where a good interviewer listens to the subject and follows up. And it may not be following up right away, but the whole nature of a shoot interview is you're trying to tell somebody that subject right then, and they're being paid for it. So there's a big difference, right? Like Slam Wrestling, we've been on 23 years, never paid for an interview, nor would we, right? But these guys doing these shoot interviews are getting paid by High Spots or whoever it is,
right,
to do the shoot interview. So it's a completely different animal than what I do. I don't consider it real journalism. It's I don't know what I'd call it.
Okay.
So I don't know if that sounds harsh. But
no, I'm just curious because sometimes you see one of those interviews and then the book's coming out and you're like, oh, I wonder if they're going to talk about the same thing that I just heard.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about with Jen's story. It's way more than just wrestling,
right?
And ECW Press saw the potential to really market to everybody, right? And look at this amazing story of this tough woman from Sorel who goes out and does all these amazing things. And all these obstacles she's overcome, never got too far down, though she did. But, it's a great story. And in the end, that's what's important. The same with John Arezzi's story. It's 3 different stories, right? It's the baseball, it's the country music, it's the wrestling. It's an interesting story. It's not just about wrestling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think everybody has a story. Some people's are greater than others.
Good point.
Hopefully mine will be.
Okay, well, do you guys want any websites that you want to plug, LuFisto? Where can people find you right now?
For me, it's LuFisto.com, and there you can find all my social media. All the links are there. It's really the easiest way to get to me.
Okay, and Greg, we have slamwrestling.net.
Yeah, look at that. Plugged the whole way through. Yeah, so... slamwrestling.net. We've been working on diligently getting the articles back up. It's fascinating. So today was 10 years since Lance Cade died. And Trevor Murdoch did a big, long interview, like an hour-and-a-half interview with me when Lance died. And the story hadn't been live. We still have, I'm trying to remember now, I think it's about 3,400 stories still to post that didn't get put up yet. And so today I realized it was the anniversary. I put it up. And the Lance Cade story that, with Trevor Murdoch talking about him is our top story of the week at this point. It's just gotten so much traction again. So you just don't know. There's definitely a market for stories from the past. And I think it has something to do with not much going on today in wrestling generally. So it's been fascinating. So keep checking out Slam Wrestling for sure.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we're going to be looking forward to the book coming out.
Me too.
I think it's gonna be great. I can't wait to pick it up. So,
thank you.
All right, guys.
So much work, but I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Okay.
Cool. Me too.
Cool. All right, Greg. All right, LuFisto. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.